Now let us provisionally define temptation as a state in which a struggle is taking place in you as to what will take control. Put in terms of eyes, it is a struggle between different eyes. Put in terms of desires, it is a struggle between different desires. The outcome is what you do. You call this your will or your deliberate choice, and so on, if you are liable to automatic self-deception and self-justifying, and so of coarser psychological fiber. And once you do whatever you do according to the outcome, the temptation ceases. But if you are of finer material, you inwardly and secretly are aware that you did not really decide anything and it was all decided for you. In other words, there was no temptation. There may have been some anxiety, but not temptation. Now put in terms of a struggle between different eyes. The outcome was really a compromise between the eyes, just as happens in politics between different parties. Put in terms of different desires, the outcome was really the resultant of these desires, like the resultant of forces acting in different directions in mechanics. In short, the thing was a foregone conclusion. It was not decision, but compromise or resultant. In other words, it was mechanical. As said, there may have been some anxiety or even perhaps doubts, and the transient apparition of some ghostly resolutions, but the matter was eventually settled for you mechanically. Now you cannot attribute to a machine any power of being tempted. How can a machine possibly be tempted? You cannot say when your motorcar strips a gear that it was tempted to do so. If you do, you are using the wrong language. I will ask you now to consider the case of man. The work says that man asleep is a machine. How then can he be tempted? You are using the wrong language, surely, if you say so. But if you are speaking of a man who is awakening from sleep, the matter is different. Such a man can be truly tempted. In fact, he is tempted, for otherwise he cannot continue to awaken. Now, a man awakening is not entirely a machine. A machine has no psychology, but a man awakening begins to have a psychology and so can be tempted. In this connection, on one occasion, when G was asked a question about a man's psychology, he replied, "A man such as you are speaking of has no psychology. He is a machine. In order to study a machine, you do not speak of psychology. With him, it is a question of mechanics and nothing more. Study him as a machine, and you then will know exactly how he will behave in different circumstances." That is what G said in so many words. It shows one the reason why he so often said, "Which kind of man?" when people spoke of anyone. We forget the 7 categories of man and think too easily of man in the abstract instead of which man. Now, in speaking of what is good and bad for the work, it is taught that whatever puts you to sleep is bad. It is only possible to observe what puts you to sleep when you begin to have a point in the work within yourself. That is, when you have some eyes in you that wish to work and are not much interested in the sort of things on sale in life. These eyes group themselves on the level of observing eye and only gradually increase in number. Slightly below them are the crowd of life, as upon which the power of detachment inherent in that inner sense called observing eye enables us to look, at first, only dimly. Many of these eyes are not really life eyes and should be lifted out of that sea. They will be if the heat of the work in you begins to equal the heat of life, as one ancient writer puts it. Heat means love. You will see that I am describing the state of a man awakening, a man who begins to have a psychology and not merely a machinery. This man has some choice. The choice is between two levels. Two levels are beginning to form in him, the work level and the life level. Two sorts of eyes are now being rightly arranged in him, work, eyes, and life, eyes. In place of disorder, order is being established in him. This is due to the power behind the work, and be it noted, the power of the work in him depends solely on his own private secret valuation of the work. Life will not and cannot bring about this order in him. That is why the work has always existed in one or another form suited to the age. Now the strength of life and its very clever but very simple ways of hypnotizing people and keeping mankind asleep continually distracts us so that we forget to do the work. But we can do the work. It is the one thing we can do, so we have choice. And so we can be really tempted just because we have these two levels instead of only one, and can act from one or from the other. So for many years we are tempted in this fashion and mainly yield to life. After a long time we begin to yield more to the work, but all that comes later.